So today is March the 4th, 2025, and my composite guy has taken the rear section, the tail section from my 904 project car to do some work on it because we're making the side air intake scoops bigger like the competition cars. So I thought I would do a little bit of a video here showing the details on the construction of this car on the rear part. So right here we're looking at the custom oil tank, which holds probably around 4 gallons. That's imperial gallons of oil. You can see the dash 16AN braided hose going to the supply side of the engine block with the external oil filter there where normally the oil cooler goes, but not on these 993 engines. The engine is a 1995 993 engine, the non-varial ram engine with the hydraulic lifters. We can see the dash 12AN oil line. That's the line that comes back to the tank from the front oil cooler. Here on the rear bulkhead we can see the fuel pressure regulator. On the return line from the fuel rail here on the driver's side, the fuel rail is a custom billet aluminum fuel rail. All the supply lines for the gasoline or fuel is dash 6AN. We have a custom intake which originally was routed to this space right here, but found out that the bodywork kind of interfered with it. And the other thing was that when the engine was idling, the hot air coming from underneath the engine was sucked in to the cold air intake. So I routed the ducting we have for the air intake over the fan where we're going to have cool air coming in this area here. I noticed that the engine temperature was getting higher with the air intake over there, the side of the engine. It's a twin plug ignition. We have 6 coils, each firing 2 cylinders, so it's called a wasted spark ignition. It's a crank fire ignition, taking the signal off the flywheel. It's a 60-2 tooth trigger system. There's a custom stainless steel exhaust header system coming off each side of the engine. It's a 3-into-2. And it's a cross flow muffler that it goes into with a dual exhaust coming out the back. And it's a Flowmaster cross flow muffler. Actually, it's for a Camaro. So that's one of the cheapest part of the whole construction is the muffler here. As you can see on the back, we have all spherical bearing links for the suspension on the wishbones and control arms, if you call them that, and also the adjustable link for tow on the rear. It's a push rod rear suspension with the push rod right there going into a pivot, and a horizontally mounted rear shock. They're 1 7/8 shocks, small body shocks, and they are aluminum body. As we can see here, the gearbox is a Hewland 6-speed sequential. It's a Hewland NMT, and it has a limited slip, clutch type limited slip. It's called a Salisbury diff, and it's an all solid shift linkage, which you can see here, solid rod onto the shifter arm. It's an aluminum casing, not a magnesium casing, so it's quite durable, and it's mounted with a custom fabricated bell housing made up to the Porsche engine, and it also has a Porsche splined input shaft, so it takes a standard Porsche clutch. You don't have to get a special clutch disc because it's got a Porsche spline on it. On the passenger side here, we can see the wiring that's coming from the ECU that goes to the injectors and all the other sensors that are mounted on the engine. Everything is pretty much stripped down. You can see here we have a Canton Mecca full flow oil filter. It's a billet oil filter that takes the oil full flow. There's no regulator or anything on it. Engine, the oil exits from the engine there, goes through the filter, and then it goes to the front of the car where it goes into the radiator sized oil cooler. The yellow part of the chassis here is just painted yellow. The regular main chassis is powder coated blue, but it's the whole chassis is 4130 chromoly. It's an 095 wall thickness, which meets all the SCCA specs for chromoly tube frame chassis. The rear chassis and all the running gear is removable. There's 6 mounting points where you can see there's a bolt through each point where it meets the main chassis down there, as well as underneath the engine. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a ball lock pin going through where it attaches to the main chassis. So basically there's 8 attachment points for the whole rear subframe to be detached from the main chassis. On the back of the car, where we have the clutch line and the brake lines going to the rear, there's down there, there's 2 quick disconnects so that you can disconnect the clutch line and the rear brake line going to the 2 rear calipers. You can see one there is disconnected. I believe that's the clutch line. Also on here on the rear uprights, it's kind of hard to see. The rear brake calipers here are Brembo. Those calipers are from the front of a Ferrari F50. And we also have the rotors, or custom made rotors, are a 13-inch diameter by 1 1/4 inch thick, and they're a 32 curved vane rotor on each side, obviously. And the axles, which aren't mounted, are short, but they're also have Porsche Turbo 930 CV joints that have all been worked so that they move nice and smooth. And there you can see the custom made axial starter motor. It doesn't have an external solenoid, and it doesn't take up very much space, but it's a very good starter motor that I got out of England, and it fits in here quite nicely. And basically that's the whole setup for the rear part of the car, the running gear. Using a stock, the throttle body that came with the engine, but everything else has been stripped off it, all the stuff that was needed for power brakes and all that kind of shit that was on a Porsche 911 that the engine came out of. So it's got only the bare necessities for the ECU to use for your intake air temperature, and also the map sensor that you can see there, and all the other sensors that are required to get the engine running. So that's about it for this little thing. On the bulkhead here, you got a multi-pin connector that goes through the bulkhead to the other side, where you can see the wiring that goes into the Tech 3R ECU, and all the fuses and that are required. And down there you can see the Bosch fuel pump and fuel filter, which are just the factory parts that go with the car, and the fuel cell that's in the passenger side. So hopefully that's enough information. Again, as I stated, unfortunately, because of my age and that, when the car's finished, all the body work is done, it's all painted, all nice, Porsche Grand Prix white. After a test and tune out at the local track, the car will be available for sale. So if there are any interested parties, feel free to email at p904@shaw.ca, or I will put that information in the video description. I've been talking to a couple of people already that have shown interest, but if there are anybody, is anyone interested in something like this? Again, the rear wheel here, this is a 17 by 11 inch. We have the billet centers that are made here. All the rim halves and sealing ring on that are BBS Motorsport parts. So the only thing that was manufactured here is the wheel center. Of course, all the wheel nuts and everything like that we make, but the wheel rim halves are all BBS. And I'm running R6 tires on here. They're 275, 35, R17. And on the front, they're 9-inch, same tires, same wheel, except I think it's got a 5-spoke wheel instead of a 6-spoke. So yeah, that's about it. I think we're getting up to 15 minutes here. I don't even know how many people would watch the whole 15 minutes, but hopefully that gives you all the info you need, at least for the back half of the car. And again, anyone who may be interested in possibly buying this car when it's finished, feel free to contact me, and I can give you any more information that you might need. So that's it for now.